A sticky, humid Florida night, 2:30 a.m. A mother slips out of her apartment, leaving her 8-year-old son asleep in bed. When she returns, the door is still locked. The lights are off, but the bed is empty, sheets folded neatly, as if he'd never been there at all. No screams, no broken glass, just a pair of dusty sneakers by the door, and a mystery that's outlived 2 decades. Was it an accident, a crime, or a secret someone's still hiding? Tonight, we ask the question that's clawed at this community for 24 years. Where is Zachary Bernhardt? September 11th, 2000. A Florida night so quiet, you could hear the hum of streetlights. The kind of stillness that makes you believe nothing bad could happen. A young mother, Liz, slips out of her apartment at 2:30 a.m. Her son, Zachary, just 8 years old, is asleep in bed. She'll tell police she needed air, a walk to the pool to clear her head. 45 minutes later, she returns. The door is locked. The lights are off. But when she steps inside, the bed is empty. The sheets, folded neatly. His shoes, still sitting by the door untouched. No shattered windows. No muffled cries. Just a hollow silence where a child should have been. This wasn't a Hollywood abduction. No shadowy figures caught on camera. No ransom note. Just a boy gone. Vanished into the thick, swampy air of a Florida night. And in the 24 years since, detectives have chased whispers. Was it a predator? A tragic accident? Or a secret buried so deep? Even the truth has forgotten where to look. But here's what keeps this case alive. The detail that chills parents, detectives, and armchair sleuths alike. How does a child disappear without a single scream? No struggle. No evidence. Just a locked door, a folded bed, and a question that refuses to die. Where is Zachary Bernhardt? To understand the weight of this mystery, you need to know the boy at its heart. Zachary Bernhardt wasn't just a name on a missing poster. He was 8 years old, small for his age, with sandy hair and a shy grin that hid behind his sleeve when strangers said hello. He loved Pokemon cards, Sonic the Hedgehog, and cheesy pizza rolls eaten straight from the microwave. His teachers called him quiet but curious, the kind of kid who'd spend recess digging for fossils in the dirt, convinced he'd find a dinosaur bone. But Zachary's world was far from simple. His mother, Liz, loved him fiercely, but her battle with addiction turned their apartment into a roller coaster of chaos. Lights flickering from unpaid bills, strangers crashing on the couch, nights where Zachary would clutch his Game Boy, volume turned up to drown out arguments. And their neighborhood? The Shorecrest apartments weren't a place for kids to play freely. Police were called there weekly, domestic disputes, drug busts, whispers of predators lurking in the parking lot. Yet those who knew Zachary say he still found joy. He'd bike laps around the complex, pretending the cracked sidewalks were racetracks. He'd sneak candy from the corner store, giggling as he shared it with his little sister. But behind those moments was a child who'd learned to navigate instability like it was normal. A child who'd already mastered the art of fading into the background. So when the world asks, how does a boy vanish without a trace? Maybe the darker question is, how long had Zachary been disappearing piece by piece before that night? Was his fate sealed by the dangers he'd already survived? Or was there a predator waiting in the shadows, armed with the cruelest truth of all? That a child accustomed to silence might not make a sound when taken. To unravel this mystery, we need to dissect exactly what happened on September 11th, 2000. Let's walk through that night minute by minute, because in the gaps between seconds, secrets hide. It's 2 a.m. The Shorecrest apartments in Clearwater, Florida are quiet. Most residents are asleep, but in Unit 161, Liz Bernhardt is wide awake. She'll later tell police she was stressed, overwhelmed, desperate for air. Her son, Zachary, is asleep in his bed, a twin mattress in the living room. His shoes sit neatly by the door. His Game Boy, still warm from use, rests on the floor. At 2:15 a.m., Liz claims she checks on Zachary one last time. He's curled under a thin blanket, his back to the room. She says she kisses his head, then leaves the apartment. She insists she didn't lock the door. Why? Because Zachary was afraid of the dark. If he woke up, he'd need to reach her. But here's where her story splinters. At 2:30 a.m., Liz says she walks to the apartment complex pool, a concrete rectangle just 100 feet from her door. She'll tell detectives she sat on a lounge chair, staring at the water, trying to calm her nerves. 45 minutes pass. 3:15 a.m. Liz returns to her apartment. She says the door is locked now, a detail that immediately raises eyebrows. Did Zachary lock it? An 8-year-old boy, supposedly asleep, suddenly securing the door in the dead of night? She uses her key to get inside. The lights are off. The room is still. She walks to Zachary's bed. The blanket is there. The sheets are folded. But Zachary? Gone. No sign of struggle. No overturned furniture. No scuff marks on the floor. Even the Game Boy hasn't moved. It's as if he dissolved into the air. Liz calls 911 at 3:23 a.m. Her voice shakes. She says her son is missing. When police arrive minutes later, they find her pacing outside, smoking a cigarette. Investigators sweep the apartment. They note two things. First, the door shows no signs of forced entry. Second, Zachary's sneakers are still inside. If he wandered off, why wouldn't he wear shoes? If someone took him, why leave them behind? But the real cracks in Liz's story surface quickly. Neighbors tell police they saw her that night, but not at the pool. One resident claims he spotted her sitting alone in her car around 2:45 a.m., head in her hands. Another says she heard Liz arguing with an unidentified man in the parking lot hours before Zachary vanished. When detectives search the pool area, they find no footprints, no wet towels, no evidence anyone had been there at all. Then there's the bed. Zachary's sheets are folded with military precision, a detail that chills detectives. An 8-year-old doesn't make his bed in the middle of the night. If he was abducted, why would a kidnapper pause to tidy up? If he sleepwalked outside, why no trace of him? Police dive deeper. They learn Liz had a history of erratic behavior. Child Protective Services had visited the apartment twice before. Once after Zachary was found wandering a busy highway alone, another time when teachers noticed bruises on his arms. But without concrete proof of abuse, the case was closed. By sunrise, the apartment complex is swarming with cops. 9 units track Zachary's scent to the edge of the parking lot, and then it stops. Divers scour nearby ponds. Helicopters sweep the area. Volunteers post flyers with Zachary's face on every street corner. But days turn to weeks to months, and the questions multiply. Why did Liz wait 45 minutes to call 911? If she was at the pool, why did no one see her? Why did she claim the door was unlocked, only to find it locked later? And why, when pressed, did her timeline keep shifting? First saying she left at 2 a.m., then 2:30, then admitting she wasn't sure? Detectives confront her with inconsistencies. She fails a polygraph test. Her eyes dart. Her stories change. But without a body, without forensic evidence, without a witness, they can't charge her. The case stalls. Years later, a retired detective will call this night a perfect storm of doubt. Every clue dissolves like sugar in water. Every theory collapses under its own weight. Was Liz involved? Did she harm Zachary by accident and panic? Or was there someone else? A stranger who slipped into the apartment, silent as a shadow, and took advantage of a mother's absence? The hardest truth? We may never know. Because in the end, all that's left is an empty bed, a pair of shoes, and a haunting, unanswerable question. What happened to Zachary Bernhardt? In the hours after Zachary vanished, the Clearwater Police Department launched one of the largest searches in Florida's history. Dive teams plunged into murky ponds behind the Shorecrest apartments, their hands scraping through sludge for a shred of clothing, a toy, a bone. Helicopters circled overhead, scanning rooftops and alleys. 9 units paced the streets, sniffing for traces of a little boy's scent. Volunteers stapled flyers to telephone poles, his freckled face staring blankly at a world that couldn't find him. But within days, detectives hit their first wall. Nothing. No fingerprints. No DNA. No witnesses. Just a hollow apartment and a mother whose story kept changing. Let's start with Liz. She swore she'd gone to the pool that night. But when police inspected the area, they found no footprints, no damp towels, no sign anyone had been there. Neighbors contradicted her timeline. One claimed he saw her sitting in her car around 3 a.m., sobbing. Another said she'd heard Liz arguing with a man in the parking lot earlier that evening. When pressed, Liz couldn't keep her story straight. First, she left at 2 a.m., then 2:30. Then she admitted she might have lost track of time. Then came the polygraph. Investigators asked Liz straightforward questions. Did you harm Zachary? Do you know where he is? The machine spat back erratic lines. She failed, miserably. When confronted, Liz blamed stress, exhaustion, grief. But detectives couldn't ignore the truth. The person closest to Zachary was hiding something. Yet without a body, they couldn't arrest her. Without evidence, they couldn't even call her a suspect. So they dug deeper into her past. They learned Child Protective Services had visited the Bernhardt apartment twice. Once, when Zachary was found wandering a highway alone at age 6. Another time, when teachers noticed bruises on his arms, bruises Liz claimed were from roughhousing. Friends described her as loving but volatile, her life a revolving door of boyfriends and financial crises. Was she capable of hurting Zachary? Maybe. Could she have panicked after an accident? Possibly. But how do you prove a crime with no crime scene? Meanwhile, the theories multiplied. Theory 1, drowning. The apartment complex had 3 ponds. Could Zachary have sleepwalked into the water? Divers spent days searching. They found bicycles, shopping carts, a rusted gun. No child. Theory 2, trafficking. A neighbor claimed he'd seen a suspicious van circling the complex that week. Detectives tracked down every registered sex offender in a 50-mile radius. All had alibis. Theory 3, familial abduction. Did someone in Liz's fractured family take Zachary? Relatives were interrogated. Phone records subpoenaed. Again, nothing. Theory 4, stranger danger. Maybe a predator had been watching Zachary, waiting for a moment when his mother stepped away. But how did they get in? The door was locked. The bed was made. No screams. With each dead end, desperation grew. Police drained septic tanks. They sifted through landfills, gagging on the stench of rotting garbage, hoping to find a tooth, a shirt, a speck of blood. They even consulted psychics, who pointed them toward wooded areas and abandoned sheds. Every search ended the same way. Empty hands. Then came the rumors. A woman in Georgia swore she'd seen Zachary at a gas station, buying chips with a bearded man. A trucker claimed he'd picked up a hitchhiking boy who matched his description. Detectives chased every tip. The boy in Georgia was 12, home safe with his parents. The hitchhiker? A runaway from Ohio. Years passed. The case turned ice cold. But in 2016, a bombshell. A jailhouse informant came forward, claiming Liz had confessed to killing Zachary during a drug-fueled rage. Finally, detectives thought proof. But when they subpoenaed the informant's phone records, they found calls to tabloid reporters. He'd sold the story for $500. Another dead end. Today, the case remains open, technically. But the truth is, there's nowhere left to look. No new evidence. No witnesses left to question. Even Liz has faded from the public eye, her life a series of evictions and petty crimes. So what are we left with? A mother who failed a lie detector test. A child who vanished into thin air. And a case file stuffed with maybes and what-ifs. The hardest part? We'll probably never know. Because in the end, Zachary's disappearance isn't a puzzle missing a few pieces. It's a hole in the shape of a boy. And no amount of digging can fill it. When a child vanishes, the world demands answers. But in Zachary Bernhardt's case, the only thing louder than the questions is the silence. Over 24 years, theories have multiplied like cracks in glass, each one splintering into a new possibility, a new nightmare. But without proof, they're just stories. Ghosts of what might have been. Let's walk through them. Theory 1, the accident. Maybe it was a tragic mistake. Liz, struggling with addiction, loses her temper. Zachary falls, hits his head. Panicked, she disposes of his body, fabricates the pool story to cover her guilt. It explains the locked door, the lack of evidence, her failed polygraph. But here's the hole. Where's the proof? No blood, no witnesses, no confession, just a mother's crumbling credibility and a question that won't fade. How do you hide a child's body so completely? Not even cadaver dogs catch a whiff. Theory 2, the predator. The Shorecrest apartments were a magnet for trouble. Police logs show calls for drug deals, assaults, registered sex offenders living blocks away. Could someone have watched Zachary? Learned his mother's routine? Slipped in the unlocked door, snatched him mid-sleep, and vanished? It's possible. But then why leave his shoes? Why fold the sheets? And how did no one hear a car engine, a muffled cry, a door creaking open? Predators leave traces. This one left only shadows. Theory 3, he's still alive. It's the hope that tortures Zachary's family. What if he's out there? A 32-year-old man with no memory of his past, raised under a new name. Maybe trafficked. Maybe sold. Maybe wandering, amnesiac, through another life. But reality chokes that hope. No social security activity. No school records. No face in a crowd that matches. And the cruelest truth. Children taken by strangers rarely survive. Theory 4, the unseen truth. This is where the case festers. What if the answer lies in the gaps we can't see? A drug deal gone wrong. A debt repaid with a child. A secret buried so deep, even the people involved have forgotten. Or worse, what if it's all true? Liz did go to the pool. A predator did strike. And the perfect storm of bad luck, bad timing, and bad choices let a boy vanish without a sound. But here's what no theory explains: the silence. Zachary's family has begged for answers for 24 years. His sister, now grown, still posts his photo online every September 11th. "Someone knows something," she writes. "Please, let us bury my brother." His grandparents died without closure, their graves marked by a name that's never felt real. Zachary Bernhardt, 1992? The $10,000 reward for information still stands. Not that it matters. Tips trickle in: a psychic's vision of a shallow grave, a man in Alabama who looks just like him, a rumor that Liz drunkenly confessed at a bar. Each lead unravels. Each hope dies. Even the apartment complex holds its secrets. Shorecrest was demolished in 2008, replaced by a bland row of condos. No plaques, no memorials, just fresh paint over the cracks where a boy's laughter once echoed. So where does that leave us? With a mother who can't be trusted, a police force that can't be blamed, a family that can't grieve, and a public that can't forget. Because Zachary's case isn't just about a missing child. It's about how easily truth can dissolve, how stories replace facts, how a single night can fracture into 1,000 possibilities, none of them whole. The hardest theory to swallow? That we'll never know. That Zachary's fate is a riddle without an answer, a ghost story with no ending. That somewhere out there a secret is rotting, untold, unpunished, alive. And until someone speaks, the silence will keep growing. Louder, heavier, until it's all that's left. Let's be clear, Zachary Bernhardt's story isn't just another true crime mystery to binge over coffee. It's a mirror, a cracked, unflinching mirror held up to the rest of us. Because what happened to Zachary isn't just about one boy. It's about how easily we let children fall through the cracks. How we look away from the messy, inconvenient truths festering in the shadows of our neighborhoods. How we fail them. Again, and again, and again. The systems that failed him start with the facts. Zachary's life was a checklist of red flags. A mother battling addiction. A home visited twice by Child Protective Services. Teachers who noted bruises but had no proof. Police who dismissed the Shorecrest apartments as just another troubled complex. Every system designed to protect him looked at Zachary and saw a problem too messy to solve, too time-consuming to fix. This isn't unique to Florida. It's the same story in every quiet town, every crowded city. Kids like Zachary, poor, invisible, born into chaos, slip through fingers greased by bureaucracy. How many calls to CPS go unanswered? How many teachers bite their tongues? How many cops shrug and say, "Not enough evidence?" Zachary's case forces us to ask, how many children have to vanish before we admit the system isn't broken? It's rigged. The shadows where secrets grow: addiction, poverty, neglect. These aren't just words, they're ecosystems. Places where predators thrive, where secrets rot, where a child can vanish and the world just moves on. Liz Bernhardt's struggles didn't happen in a vacuum. They happened in a country where rehab is a luxury, where mental health care is a punchline, where parents drown in silence, dragging their kids under with them. But here's the truth no one wants to say. Zachary wasn't just failed by his mother. He was failed by all of us. By every politician who cut funding to social services. By every neighbor who heard screams and closed their blinds. By every person who thinks, "Not my kid, not my problem." The ghosts left behind, Zachary's family still waits. His sister marks every birthday with a social media post. 32 today. I wonder if he likes cake. His aunt keeps a box of his Pokemon cards in her attic, the edges frayed from years of desperate touching. They're not alone. Thousands of families haunt police stations and online forums, clutching photos of missing loved ones. Their grief isn't passive. It's a scream we've learned to tune out. Because here's the uncomfortable question Zachary's case forces us to confront. Why do we care more about the mystery than the child? True crime fans dissect timelines and clues, treating his life like a puzzle. But Zachary wasn't a riddle. He was a boy who deserved safety, a boy who deserved to grow old, a boy who became a lesson we refused to learn. The unanswered question. So why does this case matter? Because it's not about what happened to Zachary. It's about why we let it happen. Why we ignore the Liz Bernhardts of the world until it's too late. Why we're more outraged by a Netflix documentary than the real, breathing children in our own streets. Zachary's story is a reckoning. A reminder that every time we look away, every time we click next episode, Every time we judge instead of act, we're complicit. We're letting the cracks widen. We're letting the shadows deepen. And somewhere out there, another child is slipping through. Zachary Bernhardt's name isn't just a headline. It's an epitaph for every kid we failed. How many more names will we add to the list? Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a boy. Sandy hair. A shy smile. Freckles scattered like constellations across his cheeks. Now imagine that boy frozen in time. Forever 8 years old, forever vanished, forever missing. Zachary Bernhardt isn't a ghost. He's a question mark etched into the lives of everyone who loved him. A question that refuses to fade. Where is he? Today, Zachary would be 32. Maybe he'd have a daughter who inherited his laugh. Maybe he'd work construction, his hands calloused but steady. Maybe he'd still play Pokemon Go on weekends, grinning as he chased digital monsters through the park. But none of that happened, because on a September night in 2000, the world stopped for Zachary. And it's never started again. His family still waits. His sister tucks his childhood drawings into her wallet, yellowed and brittle. His old neighbors pause when they pass the lot where the Shorecrest apartments once stood, as if the dirt itself might whisper answers. Even the detectives who retired years ago keep his file on their desks, thumbed raw at the edges. This isn't just a cold case. It's an open wound. So I'm asking you, no, begging you to do two things. First, look at his face. Really look. Not as a mystery, but as a child. A boy who loved pizza rolls and dinosaurs. A boy who deserved to grow up. Let that sink into your bones. Let it keep you awake tonight. Second, break the silence. If you know anything, a rumor overheard at a bar, a confession buried in guilt, a memory that never quite fit, speak. Call the Clearwater Police tip line. DM the Help Find Zachary Facebook page. Anonymity is promised. Judgment is not. That $10,000 reward? It's still collecting dust. But this isn't about money. It's about a mother who never got to apologize. A sister who never got to say goodbye. A boy who never got to be a man. And if you know nothing, share his story. Right now. Send this video to someone. Post his name. Tag #FindZachary. Because here's the truth, someone knows. A grandparent nursing a guilty secret. A former friend who lied to protect a predator. A neighbor who saw something they couldn't explain. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone you love. This isn't just about solving a crime. It's about refusing to let a child disappear twice. First from his bed, then from our memory. Zachary Bernhardt's name doesn't belong on a dusty case file. It belongs on a gravestone. In a yearbook. On a father's lips as he tucks his own son into bed. We owe him that. We owe every vanished child that. So tonight, when you lock your doors, check on your kids, or stare at the stars, say his name. Zachary. Let it echo. Let it haunt. Let it remind you that until we find the truth, he's still out there, somewhere, waiting to be found.